now maybe you can hear me. All right. We'll ask Johnny to come and lead us in a song, and then we'll get started with our class.
I'm only coming because y'all asked. If we will, let's sing 521 on Jordan Stony Banks. And we're going to sing 1, 2, and 4. On Jordan Stony Banks I stand and cast away from high to Canaan's fair and happy land where my possessions lie. I am bound for the promised land. I am bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. All over those wide extended pine shines one eternal day. There God the sun forever reigns and scatters night away. I am bound for the promised land. I am bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. When shall I reach that happy place and be forever blessed? When shall I see my Father's face and in His bosom rest? I am bound for the promised land. I am bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. Thank you, guys.
Aren't we glad?
Okay, good singing. All right, got a few little announcements here. I'm not sure how many pertain to our class, but we'll let you know what they are anyway. Prayer on the porch, if you want to join the missions team as they go out through the neighborhood, door to door, and praying with people who need prayer. And then Moms for Not Moms, that's for these younger girls that's got little babies. And volunteers are needed Sundays and Wednesdays. And that is for the audio and visual team. They need some volunteers to help with the audio, the video, all the things that help make our worship service better. So if you're interested in anything like that, go talk to someone at the office. Some computer skills are required, so I know most of us are all computer literate. Or not. I threaten to throw my computer out in the yard quite often. It doesn't seem to want to do what I tell it to do. That makes me mad. Anyway, when I threaten it, it straightens up. Okay, as you saw, what's her name, Kim? The girl that was here?
Oh, Karen?
Karen. I get Kim and Karen mixed up. Okay, Karen announced that they're getting ready to start preparing for the parade of tables, and I love that. I think that's so much fun and enjoyable for everybody. So if Lavon usually kind of heads that up for our class, but if there's enough of us, we want 2 tables, somebody else could head one up too. So if you, yes, yeah, because we've got too many. What was it, 8 at a table, and we could probably just about do 3. But if you are interested in doing a table, I'm sure Levon will probably do one, and Trish, you might want to do one too. Okay. And she said the theme was what? Your testimony. I'm not sure how I could decorate for that, but I know between Trish and Levon, they come up with some really good ideas. So anyway, get ready for that, and there'll be
September 27th.
the December 20. I didn't write. Oh, September. I was fixing to say that's after Christmas. September. Well, y'all know my hearing is not the best, so you have to kind of bear with me. All right. Well, here's somebody that we can bear with. Real easy. Real easy. Johnny, here you go. Oops.
Oh, well, good morning, y'all.
Howdy.
Howdy, howdy. Whoop. No, no.
It was up there.
I thought it was your book. No? Oh, okay. Well, we got a stray book. Oh, well, good morning. Oh. Boy, we're continuing our study in Judges, and this is last week we started up on Gideon, and we're going to continue with Gideon today. But let's go with a word of prayer here real quick, okay? Our Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for your blessings upon us, and thank you for bringing us here. And Father, I lift up Ronnie and Pat as they're on a cruise, and Father, I pray they're having a good time, and Father, keep them safe. And Father, thank you for bringing us here. And Father, as we're going to your word this morning, I've prepared, but Father, if you want to go in a direction that I'm not ready for, lead the way. I will do my best to follow. And Father, I just thank you for allowing me to teach. Help me, guide me. I don't wish to lead anyone astray. Father, open our eyes that we would see what you would have us to see. Open our ears that we would hear and understand what you have us to know. Father, open our hearts that we would embrace what you would have us to embrace and make it a part of our lives and live it out in our daily lives. Father, so that we reflect you and give the glory all to you. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Boy, we like the story of an underdog, don't we? I mean, Cinderella story. I look at some Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln would be what I would call a Cinderella story, wouldn't you? I mean, from a cabin in the woods, he had a stepmother who helped teach him how to read. And I mean, I remember seeing pictures or drawings of him reading by a fire in their home, you know. And he lost so many political races. He lost his Senate race. And then to be picked to run for president of the United States by his party and to win. And he was not a popular president. I mean, he was at a time that was very contentious in our history. But I mean, to rise from, if you tell your kids they too can be president, well, you know what? That is a real possibility. It may not be a probability, but it could be a possibility, because who knows what the Lord would have for us. I mean, I think of the story of Esther. I mean, a little peasant Jewish girl, and next thing you know, she's queen. And here we have a man named Gideon. I mean, he's hiding from people. In last week's lesson, he's hiding from people so he can try and feed his family. They're oppressing the nation, and God calls him. God calls him to lead Israel so that God can deliver them. And we know the story, don't we? We know the story. You know, last week's lesson we heard God call Gideon valiant warrior. And if you were to look at Midian threshing wheat there in a wine press, hiding from people, you would call him anything but valiant, much less a warrior. But God called him a valiant warrior. God saw the potential in Gideon. And you know what? God sees the potential in us, doesn't he? God sees the potential in us. And that he would call us where we are to serve him, to be his child. That is a mighty call, isn't it? That is a mighty call. And so we know the story of Baal, that, you know, after he got his call and God told him to go tear down the altar to Baal that his father had there on his property, and cut down the Asherah pole there, and to use that fire and build a new altar to God, dedicated to God. Take that Asherah pole, cut it up, and go sacrifice a bull that was 7 years old, sacrifice it and use the wood from the Asherah pole. And of course Gideon obeys it. I mean, he goes right out there in broad daylight. Not exactly. Under the cover of night. You know, he was God didn't tell him when, so I guess he said, you know, it's kind of funny that he would wait till that. Well, God called him at night to do it, and he did. At least he obeyed right then. And you know, he did it under the cover of night. And it says why? Because he feared what his family and what the townspeople might do to him. And sure enough, when the people got up the next morning, they saw the bull, you know, the remains of the bull, and they saw a new altar, and they saw their Asherah pole cut down. I'll bet they did. I'll bet you could have had somebody killed. They would have done as thorough an investigation as they did to find out who tore down that altar to Baal. But they found out it was Gideon, and man, they went to his father Joash's house, and they said, "Give him to us. We're going to kill him." And his father said, Now let's remember, this was Joash's property, and he had the altar to Baal on his property. He had probably constructed that himself, or had his servants do it. It was under his supervision. And he said, you know what? If Baal is a god, let him deal with Gideon. And we know what happened. And in fact, he even said, if anybody defends Baal, he'll be put to death. Let Baal defend himself. And we know the outcome, don't we? Baal was powerless to defend himself, to defend his name, to defend his honor, because there is no such thing as Baal. There's no God like that. And so Gideon gets a nickname from his father, Jerubbaal, which means let Baal contend with him. And that's what Gideon is about to do, isn't he? He's about to contend with Baal. And so Gideon calls out. He calls out in his hometown, his country. He calls out to the tribes. They're surrounding his tribe. And he asks for men to come, and we're going to go battle the Midianites. And so the people respond, the men respond, and they gather there at Gideon's house there in Ophrah. But Gideon he's still not quite sure. He's still not quite sure. And we know about the fleece, don't we? Where Gideon put out the fleece and said, here, God, if it's you calling me, let just the fleece be wet. I get the order mixed up, but you know, let just the fleece be wet and the ground be dry. But that wasn't good enough. God did that, but that wasn't good. Okay, God, let just the fleece be dry and the ground be wet. But God met his request. God was gracious, patient, and loved Gideon enough, said, okay, I will do what you asked. Now Gideon has the faith. And meantime, the Midianites, the Amalekites, the people from the east, they gather in the valley of Jezreel. Now, Jezreel, we know about Jezreel, don't we? You know what Napoleon said about Jezreel? This is the perfect battleground. Man, many battles have been fought at Jezreel, at Megiddo, there in Jezreel. In fact, we know that there's going to be one more battle to surpass all battles there, Armageddon. This is the battle place where Mount Tabor, where Barak and Deborah battled off the Canaan, or defeated the Canaanites, was there at Mount Tabor, there at Jezreel. And this is where God is going to, where God calls Gideon to contend with Baal, there in the valley of Jezreel. So let's get started here. Okay. We're going to read Judges 7 verses 1 through 3. It's on page 93 of your guides. Let me grab a quick... Bless you. Okay. And Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the troops who were with him, got up early and camped beside the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them, below the hill of Morah, and the camp of Midian was north of them. Boy, my eyes are having trouble focusing this morning. Okay, let's get started again here. All right. Okay, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the troops who were with him, got up early and camped beside the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them, below the hill of Morah, in the valley. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many troops for me to hand the Midianites over to them, or else Israel might elevate themselves over me and say, 'I saved myself.' Now announce to the troops, whoever is fearful and trembling may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 of the troops turned back, but 10,000 remained. So we can gather from this that 32,000 men have gathered with Gideon, and they have traveled to, the spring of Harod. That's the watering place there there in Jezreel. They're in the hill country, and below them, just to the north of them, in the valley there, are the Midianites. Now, how many Midianites do you think there are? Now, we know from reading later verses that it says 120,000 of them were slain there in the valley, and then another 15,000 fled. So we're looking at about 135,000 men there that the Midianites, the Amalekites, and the men of the east. 135,000 men. Gideon has 32,000 men. So we're looking at a little more than 4 to 1. And I'm thinking, if I'm Gideon, I said, okay, knowing this number, we'll have to fight hard, but that's doable. That's doable. We can defeat these men. And what does God say to him? You got too many men. Now, conventional wisdom says you want as many men as you can to battle, right? That is conventional wisdom. And God says you got too many men. Okay, Lord. Announce to the troops that whoever is too scared to fight, go home. Now, there's a good reason for that. If you've got men who are scared, they're scared to fight, they can affect the morale of the other men, and they can make them scared to fight. So it's better, you're going to have fewer men, but you're going to have a better quality man. You're going to have a better quality army because they're not scared to fight. But can you imagine Gideon's shock when he sees 22,000 men leave? More than 2/3 go. I'm thinking, he's over there muttering to himself, okay, the Lord said he would be with me. The Lord said he would be with me. I am sending you. You will strike down Midian as if it were one man. Okay, Lord, okay. And he opens his eyes and 2/3 of his army's gone. He goes, oh my, okay. Okay, so now we got 13-1. We'll have to fight harder, but we can still do it. Okay, we can fight harder, but we can still do it. And what does God say? Let's go on. Let's go on to Judges 7:4-8. And then the Lord said to Gideon, it's on page 94. Then the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many troops. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. If I say to you, this one can go with you, he can go. But if I say to you about anyone, this one cannot go with you, he cannot go. So he brought the troops down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, separate everyone who laps water with his tongue like a dog. Do the same with everyone who kneels to drink. And the number of those who lapped with their hands to their mouths was 300 men, and all the rest of the troops knelt down to drink water. And the Lord said to Gideon, I will deliver you with 300 men who lapped and hand the Midianites over to you, but everyone else is to go home. So Gideon sent all the troops to their tents, but kept the 300 troops who took the provisions and their ram's horns. The camp of Midian was below them in the valley. You got 10,000 men, and God says, you got too many troops, Gideon. Too many troops. He says, but I'm going to test them for you. And you know that word test that he uses there is that word refine. Like I'm going to refine the gold for you here. You got gold here, but I'm going to refine it. We're going to remove all the dross out of it. We're going to remove the impurities from it. You're going to have a smaller force, but it's going to be an even purer force, a stronger force, a better force. He says, take them down to the water, and I'll test them for you. So Gideon does. You know what? I've got to say one thing about Gideon. He's obedient, right? He tested the Lord. He threw his fleece out, but he's obedient. Oh, that I were that obedient. If the Lord said to me, Johnny, you got too many minutes, but Lord, I'd be whining. We're already 13-1. Can you hear my whine there? My South Texas drawly whine. Remind you of your kids. Mom, Dad. That'd be Johnny B's. You still got two. I'm going to test them out for you, Gideon. I'm going to make them better for you. So he takes them to the water. And he says, okay, everyone that laps their water like a dog. Now what this picture is that they're getting down on their bellies and they're putting their head to the water to drink. Okay? So they're on their bellies and they're I've seen it on the movies, and I'm sure it happened in real life in the real West, that when somebody, you've been riding for days and you got a little canteen of water and it's about out, and you're thirsty, and you finally see a water. I've seen in the movies the cowboy runs to the water and he just throws himself at it, And he's lapping the water up. He's got his head in there, and that's what's happening here. And then you got those who kneel down, and they're cupping the water with their hand, and they're pulling it. Now the Bible doesn't say why God separated them like this. There's those that say, well, this was a test of alertness, a test of vigilance. If you're on your belly, got your head in the water, taking a drink, you've abandoned yourself and you've abandoned your defense, and you can't see anything other than the water, right? And for those that are there, at least they can look around. But I always wonder what the Jewish take on this, because that to me is a Western take on this. Okay, that is the Greeks are Western, or that you got that Roman Greco take on things. So I looked at. I've got a website I go to called Chabad.org. It's a Jewish website, and they've got a lot of. We got what? 5,000 years of history with Jews, right? Or thereabouts. And there's a lot of rabbis, there's some insight into this. And so I looked this up on my website just to see, okay, what do the rabbis think about this? What do the Jews think about this? And their thought is that those who threw themselves on their belly to drink the water, that's what they did when they worshiped the false gods. They would throw themselves down on their bellies in front of their false gods to worship. Could God be separating out those who worshiped a false god, who worshiped Baal? He's separating out a force that is dedicated to him, or at least that hadn't worshipped the false god, doesn't worship a false god, doesn't worship Baal. Is God separating out men who are dedicated to him? Now, I'm thinking, you know what? That sounds like God, but you know, that's man's interpretation again. So, yeah, you know, just because the Bible doesn't say what God's reason was for it, that doesn't keep us from speculating, does it? So, but I was thinking, boy, that would really be a great test to find out who's dedicated to you. And what do we get? 300 men. What did God say when he said, you've got too many men for me to deliver the Midianites to you? Because if you defeat them with this many men, Israel might elevate itself and said, we did that. Look at us. We are a powerful nation. Yes. Israel. Right? 4-1, the job's hard. It's bad. 13-1, you're looking at some really bad odds. 450-1, that's impossible, isn't it? Impossible. 450-1. What did Jesus, remember when the disciples asked Jesus, when Jesus said, you know, Jesus is teaching them a lesson. And we've got the story of the rich young ruler. And Jesus said it's harder for the rich to enter into the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle. And what did the disciples ask? Well, if the rich ain't going to get into heaven or can't get into heaven, who can? And what did Jesus say? With man, it's impossible. But with God, all things are possible. And as I was doing my study, it brought to mind what Jonathan told his armor bearer. Excuse me here. Jonathan wanted to attack a Philistine garrison. And so he took his armor bearer, him and his armor bearer alone, went to this garrison. And I'm sure the armor bearer's going, Jonathan, are you sure about this? And Jonathan's statement was, God is not constrained by whether he saves by few or by many. And Gideon's about to find that fact out, isn't he? God can deliver with few or with many. The Israelites will know now that with 450-1, it was impossible for them to defeat the Midianites. But they're about to find out that with God, all things are possible, aren't they? All things are possible. So, Gideon takes his 300 soldiers. He tells the 9,700 other men, go home. Go home. They get their provisions and they get their weapons for battle, right? They get their ram's horns. It says they got provisions and ram's horns and they get ready to prepare for battle. I don't see any swords being gathered up. I don't see any shields being gathered up. Spears. We're going, but you know, remember Jericho? They didn't have theirs. They marched around and they did the ram's horns, right? Okay. Okay. So we're ready for battle. Let's go to Judges 7, verses 19 through 23. But before we do that, because there's some verses in between this verse 8 where they get separated down and verse 19. We're getting ready to go to battle. It's nighttime. And God wakes Gideon up and says, okay, it is time to get to battle. Get your men ready. We're going to go to war. And he, and you know, if nothing else, God knew Gideon's heart, didn't he? But I'm sure he saw the fear in Gideon's eyes when he said, it's time to get your men up. We're going to go to war right now. And he sees Gideon's eyes. He said, okay. I wonder if God just breathed a sigh and he goes, okay, you've tested me before. Okay. But if you're scared, go down to the Midianite camp, take your servant with you, and I will let you know that the battle's yours, that I've delivered them. You'll hear something that will encourage you. Now, you know, Johnny Meese has been, it's kind of like I dare you. You know, I've been asked to do something, and I'm going, well, you know, I kind of start him-hawing, then they say, well, okay, if you're scared, do this then. And usually, you know what, I don't like being called yellow. Okay, I don't like being called scared. Okay, I'm man enough, I can man up and do it. Does Gideon do that? No. He says, okay, I'm going to take you up on your word on this. And so he takes his servant, they go down, they get pretty close to the Midianite camp. They get close to the outpost where the guards are. And Gideon can hear them talking. And one of the guards is saying, you know what, I had a weird dream last night. I dreamed that there was this barley loaf of bread, and it's tumbling down the hill, and all of a sudden it hits one of our tents, and it hits the tent with enough force that it knocks it over, knocks it upside down, and it collapses. That is a weird dream, isn't it? And then the other guard says, that is none other than Gideon defeating our army. We've got a dream. We've got an interpretation of a dream. Boy, where have we seen that before, huh? Joseph. We've got a dream, and God interpreted the dream. And I don't know, you know, I'm thinking, I wonder if that guy had the dream the night before, and he's probably been talking about it during the day. How did they know about Gideon? Did they hear about it from those troops who had left? They caught one or something? And they said, hey, Gideon's got 32,000 men up there, or he's got a lot of men still left. But you know what? I know this. We're going to find out that God has prepared Midian for defeat. God has prepared Midian for defeat. And Gideon worships God right there. I'm sure he can see them, he can hear them, but he's out of their sight. They don't know he's there, and he worships God right there. He goes back to camp. And what's he do? Hey guys, time to wake up. We're going to battle right now. Right now? Right now. They get their ram's horns, they get their pitchers, they get their torches. We're going to go into battle with these? Yep, that's what God says. We're going to go into battle with these. Okay. Gideon's obedient. The men are obedient. They circled the camp. Midian says, follow my lead. When I break my pitcher, y'all break yours. You lift your torch. We're going to blow the ram's horns. We're going to break our pitchers. We're going to lift our horns, and we're going to shout, a sword for the Lord and a sword for Gideon. Y'all follow my lead. They're around the camp. Here we go. Judges 7:19 through 23. Gideon, and he divides them into three groups. Gideon and the 100 men who were with him went to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle of the watch after the sentries had been stationed. They blew their ram's horns and broke their pitchers that were in their hands. The three companies blew their ram's horns and shattered their pitchers. They held their torches in their left hands and their ram's horns to blow in their right hands, and they shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Each Israelite took his position around the camp, and the entire Midianite camp army began to run, and they cried out as they fled. When Gideon's men blew their 300 ram's horns, the Lord caused the men of the whole army to turn on each other with their swords. They fled to the acacia house in the direction of Zerah, as far as the border of Abel Mahala near Tabith. Then the men of Israel were called from Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh, and they pursued the Midianites. Now, a nighttime attack is not uncommon, okay? When he says at the beginning of the watch, what was it? That they went at the beginning of the middle watch. This is somewhere between 10 o'clock and midnight at night. So the men are asleep. The guards they've just changed the watch. So the men who were watching, they're getting ready to go into their beds. They're tired. They're ready to go to sleep. The men who were there, they're still, kind of, they're trying to get into position, get ready to go. And all of a sudden, you hear these ram's horns. The call to arms. The Midianites knew what that call was. It's called to get ready for battle. And then they break their pitchers, 300 men. They break their pitchers. They lift their swords, their torches up, a sword for the Lord and a sword for Gideon. 300 men shouting at one time. I imagine God arranged acoustics to where it echoed throughout that valley of Jezreel. The men, they've been woken up suddenly. They are startled. What in the world is going on? They come out, and I mean, they've already been, they're already scared that, remember what I told you about men being scared, affecting the morale of the men who were ready to fight? These men, they've heard the dream. God has prepared them for fear. They hear this, and they start to run. They are fleeing. Then they hear the second call, attack, with the ram's horns. And they start turning on each other with their swords. 120,000 men die there in that camp by their own hands. 120,000 men kill each other because God prepared them for defeat. They were ready for defeat. They were scared. And they continue their run. They start fleeing, and so Gideon and his men start pursuing them, chasing after them. And it says that he called on the men from Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh. I imagine these were probably the men who had been rejected by God. But he called them to help with the pursuit. We don't know if God gave him permission to, or if in the height of the exhilaration of battle and the victory that he's called them to help pursue. But we know he did it. They had a victorious victory. They pursued another 15,000 men. And it was a great victory for God. 300 men defeat 135,000. Now, you know, it is amazing. It is amazing. 300 men defeat 135,000. What was it? Impossible. And what was God's point in this? He loved Israel so much. He wanted them to see that the only reason that they were able to do this was because God orchestrated it. God loved them so much. He wanted them to turn back to Him. He wanted them to come back to Him and serve Him. He freed them one more time. Freed them from the oppression of the Midianites. You know, if they had done this all by themselves, if they'd done it with the 32,000 men they started with, they would have thought, we did this by ourselves. Who needs God? Who needs God? You know, it's easy for us to get that way in our own hearts, isn't it? That we, you know, how many times have we tackled a problem on our own, and then we finally cry out to God, Lord, help! Lord, help me! I remember the disciples. Remember them bailing water out of a boat in the middle of a storm, and they finally woke Jesus up and said, Lord, don't you care that we perish? We've tried it on our own. This is where we've gotten. We're going to die. He wanted to win their hearts back. He wanted to win their hearts back. And out of His love and His patience and His mercy, His grace, He provides a mighty victory. You know, some of us, you know, I look at this class. How many we got here today? 19 people here, okay? And we're missing a couple still. 19 people. I'm 72. I'm one of the babies. I'm one of the... Jerry, how old are you, Jerry? 90. Anybody older than 90? How old are you, Don? 93. 93? We might think we're too old. Yeah. What can the Lord do with me? I'm 72 years old. I limp. I hurt. I mean, I was talking with Ron earlier, and I was asking him about his hands, and he said, well, this hand, you know, in the mornings that's about as much, and he said, as the day goes on, it gets a little more flexible, but he can't make a tight fist, can you, Ron? And I know that feeling. You know, as the day goes on, I get a little more oil. You know, the joints start moving a little easier as I get moving along. But, you know, I can have a tendency to think, Lord, I am too old to be doing this.
These kind of stories renew your faith in God.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm rich. I know by world standards I am very rich. But here in America, you know, we got some money set aside. Lord, I'll give what I can, but I'm kind of poor. I'm kind of poor to be doing this. I'm too old. I'm too weak. I'm too poor. But I see this story of Gideon. And you know what? Our God is a big God. He is a rich God, and He is a strong God, and He has done much with little. And He can still do much with us.
But most of all, He's a faithful God.
He is a faithful God. He can do much with us He can do much through us if we will but make ourselves available.
That's a good army to be on.
That is a great army to be on. We will be victorious. We will be victorious. Let's close with a word of prayer. Our Father God, thank you so much for this word. Lord, help us to remember that our resources don't constrain you. Johnny Meese doesn't constrain you. Lord, if I will just make myself available to you, you will do much with what I've got. You will do much with me. You will do much through me. Lord, help me to make myself available and to be as faithful to you as you have been faithful to me. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.